We've gone over all the 1 o'clock games to this point, but let's pivot to our quickly talk about the Jets and Bills game, because the Jets now, after this game, Bills coming back into their own, winning 32-6, having a good performance. Josh Allen says he's back after this game, so that's good. And the main storyline from this game was the Jets have finally decided to bench Zach Wilson. They're moving forward with Tim Boyle and moving Zach Wilson to third on the depth chart behind even Trevor Siemian at this point. And my early reactions is, you're a couple of weeks late to this. Zach Wilson, I wanted to give him the benefit of the doubt, and I definitely think that his first year was very clunky, and I wanted him to play well in the next stretch of games and keep them in contests without Aaron Rodgers there. But there's a lot of people you can point to in this Jets organization that deserve some blame, because we knew the reason why they went after Aaron Rodgers was they have this formidable defense, this great defense. Go out there, you get Aaron Rodgers, which was a big swing. Unfortunately, the way things prevailed wasn't the best for him, but not getting a solid backup even after Aaron Rodgers went down, shame on you. Carson Wentz was available. You had other guys during the trade deadline that you could have traded for. Josh Dobbs, they gave up a bag of chips for Minnesota. And not doing that and continuously trying to push Zach Wilson when Zach Wilson had lost you a few games and just not being the guy for you, still stringing together wins. Shame on the Jets. And I'm not going to bang on Zach Wilson for his struggles, because I know he's a human at the end of the day. But this is a move that is long overdue, and hopefully maybe the Jets can still string together wins and be in that mix. Yeah. But I'm not holding my breath.
Yeah, I'm not holding my breath here. And then coming into this week, the Jets had, by Pro Football Focus, they are ranked as the #1 total defense in football. And when you have the best defense, the only thing that's going to mess that up is the offense. You mentioned you went out and got Aaron Rodgers for a reason, but this is what happens when you have an arrogant, stubborn, and stupid organization with the New York Jets, because while you have Zach Wilson, you know what he was in his first year, you know what he was in his second year, and you know what he was coming into the season, which is a bad quarterback who can't make a ton of reads. He has some flashy plays. He can make some plays outside of the pocket with his arm where he does the scramble drill, but he really just looked like a poor man's Russell Wilson mixed with Baker Mayfield and Johnny Manziel with all of the wrong character traits. You saw the issues he had with his leadership last year where he wasn't blaming it, and then he buys his team's fucking scooters for his offensive line. You really think a 100-pound man is going to want to get on a mini scooter? I don't think so. So you knew all of the situations, and while he has grown as a leader this season, it's not his fault that the Jets didn't decide to go out there and get a quarterback. You mentioned Josh Dobbs. The Browns gave up a 6th-round pick for Josh Dobbs. As soon as Aaron Rodgers went down and you have a chance to make the playoffs, what you immediately should have done is called every single team, work the phone, see if we can get Gardner Minshew, see if we can go out there. We said, go out there and get Carson Wentz. And while Carson Wentz isn't the best quarterback in the world, we know for a fact that he's better than Zach Wilson. So the Jets have no one to blame but themselves for this situation. You had Zach Wilson and Tim Boyle. You had the arrogance to think that Aaron Rodgers was going to be able to fix him. And it's not Zach Wilson's fault that he's not an NFL quarterback. He doesn't really have the size or strength to be an NFL quarterback, and he can make some throws outside the pocket, but the game just doesn't come naturally to him. And when your strength is when you're making quick reads and then hitting your first target, that's great in college. Sure, that's great, but it's easy to take away his first read, and then once he has to hold the ball, the stats are dramatically different to when he gets the ball out under 3 seconds, and then when he holds it past 3 seconds, he's indecisive, and then you're just wasting one of the best defenses in football right now, where anytime someone comes to New York, you're giving Patrick Mahomes hell. You're the only team to beat the Philadelphia Eagles this year. You made Josh Allen turn the ball over 4 times on Monday Night Football on opening day when Aaron Rodgers goes down. You immediately should have pivoted and tried and got an NFL backup who would have been better than Zach Wilson and not just awful in stretches. And then the thing is with the NFL now is, sure, if you score points in September and October, that's fine. But when you're struggling to score 20 or 30 points in September and October, what are you going to do in November when it gets cold, when it gets harder to score? And then you have the Joe Burrows of the world, you have the Mahomes, the Josh Allens of the world who can push the ball down the field, are big, strong quarterbacks, and Zach Wilson can't do it in October and September. Like, I can't imagine that's going to build when it gets cold. So it's like, yeah, you're stuck with Tim Boyle right now because you're arrogant, you were stupid, and then you overestimated your ability to fix Zach Wilson. And you thought Aaron Rodgers was going to be his mentor and his friend. They would go to Portland, do an ayahuasca trip, and then everything would be fine with Zach Wilson. It's like, no, absolutely not.
No, and it's arrogance on their part, and they dug their own grave because now they're pretty much out of the playoff mix with this loss. And at this point, it's all their fault. And now what they're pushing now is that Aaron Rodgers could be back for Christmas. At this point, don't bring him back just so that he can move them to what, 6-10, 6-11 at this point. Like, there's no reason for him to come back, especially as an aging quarterback. And they've floated that around, and I really don't like the idea of that, especially for a guy who tore his Achilles. Like, maybe not, even if he is full strength, like, just give him another offseason to fully heal himself, because he is probably entering in his last or second to last season in the NFL. You don't want to test it with a guy who's 20 years into the league.
Yeah.
But I know the Jets, and I know what they have historically done, so I would not be surprised if he came back. But
yeah,
to this point, the Jets, you've dug your own grave, and you're going to have to bask in that consequence.